I want us to talk about some. I removed the title and I put the C word to keep the suspense. I wanna the C word. Yeah. Um, huh? You love the font. Great. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Maybe someone changed that. Yeah. It's definitely the C word, not the E word. I don't know what the E word is. Yeah.
David, pop in the PowerPoint there. Change that one thing.
No, it's okay. I think we'll survive, right? It's a C, not an E.
Okay.
And that word is change. Okay. So before we even go further, I just want us to talk about, sometimes I feel like we go through certain experiences in life, and maybe we feel stuck, you know, and we feel like we want change, but we don't know how to experience it. Okay. So there's many ways to approach this subject, but I want to take it from the point of, like, imagine that you want to experience certain changes. How can you prepare for that? Imagine that you want to turn your life around in certain aspects. You want to change a little thing, a few things in your life. You want to turn a few things over. What's the best way? And in the sessions that we've had in the past, I think we've come to the conclusion, even though not directly, that it's not possible to apply external force to bring inward change. We change from the inside out, not the outside in. You understand? Changing the things and the elements on the outside to bring change on the inside is futile. You understand? The only way that change really, really happens is from the inside out. Do you understand? So a lot of what change has to do with is actually the internal preparation before we see the outward manifestation of whatever thing that we desire to be different. Okay? Do you understand? I hope we're catching the drift here. But before all of that, like, change is a big word, okay? And maybe just to tell you the direction we're going, we're talking mostly about positive change, okay? Because change is neither positive nor negative. Some things can change for the worse, but we're talking about changing up, changing forward, changing for the better, right? That's the approach that we're taking. Some people would call it evolving, getting better and improving and, just becoming a better individual. But even with that thought, like, we see how changes often have, two effects depending on which side of the change you sit on, right? Like, I think a good example, maybe you can flip the slides. A good example would be like, if you think about like the companies that existed in the last few years, right? Think of something like Kodak, right? They kind of came up with the whole concept of portable digital cameras, right? And they owned the market for a long time. This is not a LinkedIn post, by the way. I'm just kind of starting it off, right? It's gonna make sense. Just kind of helping us appreciate what change can do, right? And that depending on which side of the change you're in, it can be of great benefit to you. So some guy said that change is the only constant in life. How many of us believe that's true? Right? Yeah. And whatever doesn't change, whatever doesn't adapt, whatever doesn't evolve eventually dies, right? We are actually where we are now because there are certain changes that have taken place psychologically, mentally, spiritually, physically. We are only here because there's been change after change taking place in our lives, whether we are conscious of it or not, okay? Winston Churchill said this, which is kind of where we are focusing on positive change. He says, to improve is to change, and to be perfect is to change often, right? So, okay. So the camera, guys. Yeah, it says to improve is to change, and to be perfect is to change often, in the sense that we cannot afford to be comfortable for too long, or relax, or get acquainted with our surroundings, or as people would call it, the comfort zone. Because when we are in our comfort zone for too long, we begin to go stale, we begin to lose relevance, we begin to kind of just slide off the face of the earth. Even though we are alive, we stop to see progress, right? And it's very easy. And a lot of times people stop changing or stop progressing. Maybe once they hit a high in their life and they feel like, oh, maybe this is the best that could ever come out of my life. And they kind of just settle there. And with the passage of time, things evolve and things change, and without them knowing, they realize that now they're at the back of the race or the back of the bus, depending on how you look at it. So change is this thing that kind of shifts things in our lives, and it's always happening. It's always acting upon us, whether it's in our relationships, our careers, our families, how we think, our views. There's always change acting on us. And depending on how we respond to this change, so what we're going to be looking at is how to prepare for change, and especially in terms of the outcomes that we desire. But sometimes when change comes and you have not sufficiently prepared, you can end up on the wrong side of that change. Like these companies that I'm talking about, like Kodak, even though they were at the forefront of that race, in pioneering digital cameras, at some point, they were left behind when other players got into the market and decided to do things, beyond film. When they started to actually, have, just digital photos. Because their main sales things was the films, right? They made a lot of money out of the films that you put in the cameras. And they kind of just stuck to that, and they were afraid to change up into what was entering the market, And in that kind of sort of events, they were left behind. And it's unfortunate because I think in 2012 they were declared bankrupt. I know they're still doing, other things, but it's not where they could have been had they embraced change, had they internally prepared for what was coming. Another company is Nokia, if you've been here, or if you're here, you may have, had a Nokia at some point in your life. And, that company was really, really popular, okay, in that it had most of the world's market share in terms of cell phones. And it really pioneered that age of technology. But still, winds of change came, and somehow, they got caught in the crosswinds. And can I see anyone with a Nokia? But if you're to ask this question a few years back, probably everyone would have one. You understand? So what happened? You understand? What did they not do? And there's so many companies. Yahoo, Motorola, BlackBerry. What else can you think of? So many other companies. Huh? Oh, Siemens. Well, Siemens is still doing some. Yeah, maybe they just changed, right? Yeah, they broke apart. But yeah, so like there's a lot of these things, and this is part of life, right? What I'm trying to tell you is that these things are not strange. That certain winds of change come and they change things around, and often for those who are prepared for it, then they are able to get ahead. And we have also positive examples of how change has, pushed some other companies forward, like Apple. In the making of computers and everything, they were able to pivot and do the iPod thing, and that was great for a while, and they pivoted again, and then they did the iPhone thing, and now probably 80% of you have iPhones. But they made the right changes, right? And they were able to fall on the right side of whatever change was coming. Netflix, they moved from DVD renting to streaming to now producing their own shows. And that kind of evolution has helped them to stay ahead of the game. And I think it's important to see what lessons we can learn when it comes to embracing change, gearing up for change, getting ready for what's coming next, even in our own personal lives. Okay? Are we together? I'm done with the LinkedIn part, okay? So, but I just want you to see how these things can affect individuals, entities, countries, and these winds of change are always coming. So how do we prepare ourselves? Okay? So we can go to the next slide. I aim to be brief today, okay? So, set an alarm for me. Okay. So, I says there, it reads there, change in what? A change of identity. But I put in brackets understanding, because I don't really think you can change your identity. I think it's a matter of becoming aware of who you really are. Do you understand? So the question I would ask you is, who are you? Oftentimes, people can't answer that question. Is anyone bold enough? Okay, good. But some people would say, I'm an engineer.
That's your job.
Exactly. That's what you do. That's not who you are. Some people would say, oh, I'm depressed. That's not who you are. That's what you're experiencing. Do you understand? Some people will say, oh, I'm a student. That's not your identity. Do you understand? So sometimes we attach our identity to the things that we do, external factors, like I said. The things that we do, the things that most define us, the things that we most associate with But the truth is, a lot of people don't know who they are. Can we agree at least on that? Right? A lot of people don't know who they are. And it's because it's not such a simple question. It's not that you're dumb, but it's not such a simple question because we are so, as it says, we are so fearfully and wonderfully made. Like we are complex beings, right? And what we carry is more than, what you do for work or what you do for your pastime or even your hobbies. You understand? You're more than, as they say, what meets the eye. You're more than what we can see. Okay? So for many people, they identify by their job, by their weaknesses sometimes, by their past experiences. You understand? We can identify with a lot of things, but all those things are not who you are. So if all those things are not who you are, so then who are you? Have you ever asked yourself that question? Who am I? It's an interesting one. Anyone want to try? Other than Eve?
I'm a bird.
Huh? Huh?
I'm a bird who likes to fly.
You're a bird. Okay. That's interesting. I would never have guessed that you're a bird, but hey, he's a bird who likes to fly. So you flew here from from Netherlands. Okay.
I'm hopping right now.
Okay. That's interesting. But as you can see, it's quite the question, and I would invite you to, even as after we have finished this session, to ask, because this is a question that can take a few months, years to answer. Some people die without ever knowing who they really are, but that's not going to happen to you because you're here today. Okay, that's good. So, who are we? I'll start by reading a few passages to help us understand. Some people even say, oh, I'm worthless. No, you're not worthless. You're worth something. You understand? I was telling my friend yesterday at work, I'm going to use you as an example because she said, oh, I feel useless. I said, no, what? How? Because think about it. I saw another video and I thought it was funny that back now we're in biology class. They said that for how do I use the most generic terms? For fertilization to happen, right? There has to be a release of how many million sperms?
More than you can count, really.
They say about 50 to 80 million.
Yeah.
Okay? So think about this, right? 50 to 80 million cells, okay? But only one is necessary to fertilize the egg. And you're that one, like being on earth means that you've beat so much competition. Like you came out victorious. You came out a champion. The fact that you're here, I know it's funny, but it's true. Do you get what I'm saying? Right? The fact that you were born. Like there could have been another combination of, do you understand? And that's why I don't think it's coincidence that we are here. Do you understand? I don't believe in coincidences. I believe everything is being pieced together perfectly. Do you understand what I'm saying? If life was just a compilation of coincidences, then we probably wouldn't be here. You understand? But everything is happening by divine design. Okay? Sorry that I made you a bit uncomfortable, but hey, listen, you need to know that you've been winning since day one. Okay? And it says here in Genesis chapter 1, it says, listen carefully, it says, so God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them. Now, so what, right? But do you realize the Bible is telling us that you are not just something that exists. You're not just another entity. You're not just another face in the crowd. But you are created deliberately in the image of God. Okay? Just think about that for a second, because sometimes when we talk down on ourselves and when we feel like we are nothing, we are actually criticizing someone else's work and creation to say that, oh, then this image of God is faulty, which is not possible. You understand? That you're here at this point in history for a very specific reason. And the sooner you find that out, the better it is for everyone. Right? So it says here, so God created man in his own image. Not in the image of anything else, but his own. Okay? And it says here that in the image of God, he created them, male and female, he created them. Specifically saying that each and every one who has walked the face of this earth is one reflection, one dimension, one aspect of God's image. Do you understand? And it goes beyond your physical attributes. Because, listen, when someone dies, what do we say? We say, oh, that's so-and-so's body. Do you understand? When death comes, we distinguish the body from the person. And we say, that's their body. Do you understand? That means you as an entity, you exist beyond your physical nature. Are we together? Right? So they bury your body, but you still exist in some form and in some realm. That's not the discussion for today, but it's true. Do you understand? It's true. So you were created in the image of God. So who do you look like? Physically, because your parents were instruments, you might say, I look like my mom, I look like my dad. But that part of you that your parents didn't create, which is not buried, the real you looks like your creator. Okay? Are we there? And so it says here in Ephesians 2:10, in the Passion Translation, it says, we have become his poetry. How many of us know what poetry is? Is poetry coincidental? Has anyone ever written a poem coincidentally? Just like, I don't know, like just putting their pen on the paper and then, no. Maybe freestyle, but they choose words and arrange them in a certain way to create rhyme and rhythm. Do you understand? So it says here, we have become his poetry. Another version says, we have become his masterpiece. Do you understand? You're not just anything. You're not just anyone. Do you understand? And just like a poet can have many poems, they're not the same. They're different. They serve different purposes. But they are all works of art in the hands of the poet. So no one is worth nothing. No one is useless. No one doesn't deserve to be here. Do you understand? Yes, sometimes people frustrate purpose and they do things that they're not supposed to do, but that was not how it was meant to be. They were not meant to fail. Do you understand? Things happened, okay? But that was not how it was supposed to be, such that you rule them out and say, oh, they don't deserve to live. They don't deserve to. Everyone deserves, because we are all made in the image and likeness, okay? Are we together? Why are you so solemn? This is good news, right? I'd love to be someone's poetry. So it says, we have become his poetry. People are recreated people that will, listen, that will fulfill the destiny that he has given each of us. That means each and every one of us in this room has a destiny. Something so specific that only you could do. In fact, I actually believe that our purpose precedes our existence. In that what you came to do was created before you came to fulfill it. Do you understand? The purpose for this chair preceded the existence of it. There was a need for it, then it was created. You understand? So the purpose for you existed before you came to the earth. That means you're here on a mission. You're here to do a very, very particular thing. Are we okay? Up to there? Confused? Good? Right. And so because we're here on a mission, we have to do everything that it takes to ensure that we can answer that question. Who am I? Who am I? What am I here to do? Do you understand? Very, very important. And so, again, it says here that that will fulfill the destiny that is given each one of us. It says, for we are joined to Jesus, the Anointed One, even before we were born. So we're going before you showed up at the hospital. Before that. Okay? And it says, God planned in advance our destiny. Any parents here? Anyone with kids? Before the kids came, that day, that night, is that the night that you went to buy the baby's clothes? How long in advance?
Yeah, I suppose when you know there's a day, they're coming.
Yeah. As soon as you find out they're coming, you start preparing.
Yeah.
So it is with you. You didn't just show up by surprise and land on earth and God said, oh, there she is. No. He says God planned in advance for your destiny. And he says, listen, and the good works we would do to fulfill it. So in God's plan, everyone has a destiny. Everyone has a path they are to follow. Everyone. You understand? Now, I'm taking away, sometimes we look at ourselves from the lens of our failures, our weaknesses, and we feel like that defines us more than the purpose for which He created us. But if the purpose existed before, then the purpose is greater than the mistakes and the failures and everything else that you've done to cloud that vision. You understand? So focus on not what you've done, but what was done before you arrived. He says God prepared in advance. Okay? Are we together? Are we thinking too much or is this... Okay, we're good, right? Listen here. It says in Psalms 139. We're still on the moment of identity, on the issue of identity. Not that we ought to change our identity, but that rather we need to discover, understand who we are in preparation for this change. Do you understand? I feel like some of these companies did not understand their position in the market, and hence they are not able to make the right decision. Do you understand? Before you anticipate any change, you need to know, where do you stand? Who are you? So it says here in Psalms 139, verse 13 to 14, it says, you shaped me inside and out. I like that it starts with the inside, because change comes from the inside. Okay? And it says here, you knitted me together in my mother's womb, long before I took my first breath. And he says, I will offer you my grateful heart for, listen, every one of you, for I am your unique creation. Every one of us is unique. There's no, I know we can look alike, but there's no two individuals who are the same. Do you understand? And that's uniqueness in itself. That you are unique. You're not weird. Change the word. You're unique. You're special. Do you understand? And it says here that I am your unique creation, filled with wonder and awe. That this might seem a bit narcissistic that the guy would just write this thing about himself. But I actually see the depth of revelation in looking at his life and saying, man, like I could have never been, but I am. And I'm breathing. And I'm alive. And I can experience the world. You understand? It's not from a place of like vanity. It's just understanding that you are actually a piece of art. And you could not make yourself. No one could. Do you understand? Do you understand? And so it says here, you have approached even the smallest details with excellence. Every bit of you is accounted for. Your hair, your pores, your eyes, everything. Another version says, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. And so it says, your works are wonderful, and I carry this knowledge deep within my soul. The fact that you can just look at yourself in the mirror, that should be a point of just gratitude that you exist and that you are who you are and not anyone else. Do you understand? Of the 50 million, it's you who gets to stand before that mirror. So it says here that you have approached even the smallest details with excellence, and your works are wonderful, and I carry this knowledge deep within my soul. Okay? Speaking of the fact that God made you the way you are a special, special being. Not just as a class of humans, but also as the individual. Do you understand? As you. Do you get? And that's very, very important. And so here, I'm going to read 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 17 to 20. It says, therefore, he says, if anyone is united with Christ, okay, he says, that person has become a new creation. Now, am I talking about the outer you? No. I'm talking about a renewal that takes place within you. Do you understand? Because the day before you come to this realization and the day after, you will look the same, but you'll probably not feel the same. You understand? Because something on the inside of you has changed. And it says here, a new life has begun. And even as I was explaining the different forms of life between plant life and human life, there is this life called the God life, or Zoe, or life as God would have it. Do you understand? A life that is free from tears, pain, sickness. Do you understand? And that's what it says here. He says, the old life is gone, and see, the new life has begun. And he says, all this is a gift from our Creator, God. He says, who has pursued us and brought us into, listen, a restored and healthy relationship with Him. We've spoken so much here how we do not preach religion. We preach relationship, because religion has no power in itself to transform the human to make them better. Only a relationship with your Creator can make you who you need to be or who you want to be. Do you understand? There is no amount of rules. Every rule that you receive from God to become better, you will eventually break it and rebel. But when you understand His heart and His disposition towards you, that He loves you unendingly, you will draw closer to Him because you will not feel judged. You will not feel, isolated. Do you understand what I'm saying? So He has drawn us, as He says, with everlasting kindness. And so He says here that the God who, listen, very important word, who pursued us. Who pursued you? God. And has brought us into a restored and healthy relationship. Many people out there don't have a healthy relationship with God. What does that mean? They see Him in a different light. They see Him as being vindictive. They see Him as being angry. They see Him as being impossible to be pleased. You understand? And just as with any human in your life who you think is angry, impossible to please, what will you do eventually? You'll stay away. But when you understand that God loves you unconditionally, and He's drawing you closer without considering your weaknesses, then you will eventually see that he is the only person that you can turn to. Do you understand? So it says here that, and he has given us this same mission. That is the ministry of reconciliation. What is that? It says to bring others back to him. It is central to our good news that God was making things right between himself and the world. And it says this means that he does not hold their sins against them. We've talked extensively about forgiveness. Okay, we can't go into that right now. But to everyone who is alive today, their sins have actually been forgiven, whether they know it or not. The problem is a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people still have this imagined distance between them and God. A lot of people still choose to stay away. Do you understand? Keep him at arm's length because can't trust him. You understand what I'm saying? And this is how we live our lives. And you see, it's impossible for you to understand who you are or answer the question, who am I, without knowing who your creator is, because you are made in the image and likeness of him. Do you understand the correlation there? And so it says here, but it also means that he charges us to proclaim the message that heals and restores our broken relationships with God and with each other. That's why when you come to manifest, I don't tell you, listen, you're worthless, you're not doing good, because that has no power in itself to bring any good out. Listen, most people already know that they're worthless. They feel that they're worthless. It helps nothing to tell you that you're finished, you have no hope. I'm much better off telling you, listen, there's hope for you if you turn to God. You understand? There's hope for you if you call on the one who gave you a chance to live. Do you understand what I'm saying? So he says he has given us the ministry of reconciliation. In other words, he has told us, go tell them that I do not count their sins against them. And in finding our way back to God, we find ourselves, we find our identity. And we are no longer floating around, holding our identity to our careers or to our weaknesses, to our mistakes. Our identity is eventually, or as it should be, is founded on the foundation that we are made in the image and likeness of God. Are we together up to there? That's step one. Can you believe it? Can we go to the next one? Because we don't have time. I don't know how much time we have, but I'll try and breeze through this quick. The other thing here is the change of the mind. Thanks, but we were getting there, right? The change of the mind, okay? That the central thing that kind of keeps us from being on the positive side of change is our outlook and perspective, right? Here. So listen to what it says here in Colossians 1:21. It says, once you were alienated from God, but it's not done. Once you were alienated from God and were enemies in your minds. So that means, were you really ever enemies with God? You were only enemies in your. Imagine that you owe someone money and that person forgives you that debt, but you don't know that they've forgiven you that debt. What will you do when you see them? You'll dodge, right? Why? Because in your mind, you still owe them. That's what it means. It says, once you were alienated and you are enemies of God in your mind. That before this, we always saw ourselves as estranged. Anyone out there who does not receive this message is always thinking that God is not happy with them. Do you know that? Ask anyone on the streets who has not heard the message of grace. They'll say that God's not happy with me. Or, there's those who don't believe in God altogether, that's fine. But I'm talking about anyone who has a concept of God, they will always have this kind of tension and fear that will ultimately not lead them towards God, because fear will never lead you anywhere good. You understand? When you fear, you run. But anyone who has not heard or understood this will instinctively shy away and withdraw from him. So it says, once you were alienated and were enemies in your minds because of your evil behavior. So we do things and we feel like God is definitely not pleased with me, so I'm just going to run away. I'm going to shut that door. I know anyway nothing good is going to come out of it. And we build up these walls, these barriers that are impenetrable. You understand? That don't allow the light to come in. You understand? And it says here in Romans 12 and verse 2, as a solution to this problem, he says, do not conform to the pattern of this world, because there is a pattern out there. That's how many people think. Do you understand? Many people are angry at God. Do you know that? And many people also think that God is angry with them. But it's a big misunderstanding. Do you understand? Because why would the one who created you be so bloodthirsty and so out to get you? Why would he be so vindictive and just so ready to punish you? If we don't do that to our kids, if we show our kids mercy, why would we think that the one who gave us parents is not better than the parents that we have? Do you understand? Just think about that for a second. And so it says there, do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed. The word there is metamorphosed, or changed from one state to another, like a butterfly. A butterfly is a pupa, and then it becomes that process is metamorphosis. So it says here, be metamorphosed by, how you metamorphose, how you transform? By the renewing of your mind. What makes you different is the degree to which your mind has been transformed with regard to how you view the Lord. Do you understand? You are as transformed as your perspective and understanding is of God. Because you know what? Your reflection, your actions will always reflect how little or how well you know God. Okay? Are we together? So it says here then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. You know, many people don't, okay. Many people know that God has a will, but they don't know whether it's good, whether it's perfect, or whether it's pleasing, because their minds are in a certain state where they view God from a fallen perspective. They see him as not on your side. They see him as your biggest challenge to success, or they see him as the biggest hindrance you have to becoming a better person. But it's quite the opposite. You understand? Okay, I'm trying to rush through. And it says here in Ephesians 4:22-24, it says, and in reference to your former way of life, it says, rid yourselves of the old self. Okay? Because we said that if anyone who is in Christ, he has become a new creature. Now, that new creature may have old memories, but you're still a new creature. You understand? And you're not who you are based on your memories of what you've done. You know, sometimes you look at yourself and you look at your life and say, I'm never going to change. Why? Because I did this, this, and that. That should never be the basis of whether you can change or not. Because anyone who has become a new creature, the slate has been wiped clean. It's up to you to write what you want to write on that slate, okay? And so it says here, rid yourselves of the old self, which is being corrupted in accordance to the lust of deceit. We said how initially that deception is in the heart of them who imagine evil when we talked about imagination a while ago, okay? But it says here, and that you are to be renewed in the spirit of your minds. You see that? There's so much. Your mind plays such a pivotal role in how you respond to the changes that come to your life. The first thing is identity, because you need to know who you are. But also how you begin to perceive things, how you interact with the world, your perspective, that's your mind, you understand? And that needs to be overhauled too. It needs to be changed. You need to have the right perspective. You need to have the right mindset. Otherwise, when the changes come, you'll find yourself in an unfortunate place, okay? I'm rushing here. And he says, listen, very interesting. Be renewed in the spirit of your mind. It says, and put on the new self. It says, which is in the likeness of God. It's in the likeness of God. Do you understand? And it says here that God, which is in the likeness of God and has been created in righteousness, holiness, and truth. We'll get a chance to talk about righteousness. But if you really think about it, the righteousness that we have from God is a gift. It's not a reward. You don't work towards it. You receive it. Do you understand? And that's why he's saying, put on. It's like a garment. Put off the old nature. Put on the new self, which is in the image and likeness of God. Okay. And he says, summing it all up, friends, we've read this before. I'd say you'll do best by filling your minds and meditating on things true, things noble, authentic, compelling, gracious, the best, not the worst, the beautiful, not the ugly, things to praise, not things to curse. Put into practice what you learned from me, what you heard and saw and realized. It says, do that, and God who makes everything work together will work you into his most excellent harmonies. That we have a responsibility to control what comes into our minds. As a preparation for whatever changes are coming. As you know who you are, you have this responsibility to guard your mind, to make sure that your mind is being transformed, being renewed. You understand? That you are not in the place where you see God as the enemy, because he can never be. And anyone who sees him that way can only be deceived. Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you understand? So he says here, summing it all up, you'll do best by filling your minds and meditating on what's true, what's noble, what's perfect, the beautiful, not the ugly. As you're preparing for change, you don't anticipate the worst, which we're going to talk about next. Expectation. Because sometimes we know who we are. We've tried to work on our minds by listening to the Power of Imagination 1 and 2 and think about it. But we still haven't figured out where to put our expectation. And we go to the next line. This is a final one, hopefully. Forgive me, guys. This is Monty's fault.
No, it's not.
So listen, guys. Expectations. Every one of us has an expectation, whether you know it or not. You know? Because expectations, just like change, are neither good or evil. We just have them. Yeah. Right? And some people are naturally inclined to expect the worst. Some cultures are naturally inclined to expect the worst. Naturally pessimistic. Okay? But expectations are so powerful in defining our life experience. It says here that expectations are the strong belief that something will happen or be the case. It says more than anything else, our expectations determine our reality. And it says, and our expectations impact those around us. It says in a kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, people may rise or fall depending on their expectations and beliefs. Like, the experiences you've had are greatly defined by the expectations you've had. I don't know if you understand. Whatever you are expecting out of life, you're right, kind of thing. You know? You expect good, you're right. You expect bad, you're right. So having a negative worldview creates a negative life experience. Do you see? Talking about still preparing for change. So as you're anticipating to become better, expect that you will become better. Expect that things will turn in your favor. Expect that your desires will be fulfilled. You know, it says something here in Ecclesiastes so interesting. It says, why is it, because people ask, it says, don't say, why is it that the former days were better than these? How many of us have found ourselves in that situation? We're saying, oh man, the good old days. Yeah, they're few. Yeah, you always look back, you know, Google brings up the memories. And you're like, hi. And then, funny enough, after that, you don't feel good, you feel bad. Do you understand what I'm saying? You don't feel so great. And that's why it says here, don't say that. It said, why is it that the former days were better than this? It says, for it is not from wisdom that you ask this. So if it's not from wisdom, where is it from? Fill in the gap, yeah. That, listen, it's an illusion. The past doesn't exist. It doesn't. Wishing that I wish I had done this, I wish I hadn't done this, is a complete waste of time. Do you understand? And it speaks, actually, when you find yourself asking, why were the good old days? You know what's creeping in? Something called despair, hopelessness. It begins to approach, and as you say that, eventually you find yourself in a bit of a slump because you are in the future, but you're wishing for a past. I'm not saying it didn't exist. I'm saying it doesn't exist. It's not there anymore. The best thing you can do is look forward to where you're going. Do you understand? So lift yourself up when you start to reflect on the mistakes that you made and think, man, I wish I could have done it. And I know you probably could have with what you know now. But listen, put that knowledge in what you can do, what you can change. Do you understand? Don't waste that effort on trying to fix things that are already gone, okay? And it says here, Jeremiah 29:11, concerning you and your future. It says, for I know the thoughts that I think towards you, says the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end. It says that God wants to give you peace, not evil. And he says to give you the end that you expect. That's interesting, right? He wants to give you the end that you expect. So if he wants to give you the end that you expect, why would you expect the worst? Do you understand? Why would you expect that life will not be easy? Why would you expect that life is going to be full of strife and struggle? Why would you expect that if he says that he will give you the expected end? Wouldn't you want to change and let that expected end be positive? I think I would, right? And as we conclude, he says here, Paul, very, very nicely, Philippians 1:20, he says, for I fully expect. Now, the man was in prison when he's writing this. So, your expectation is not defined by your current circumstance. You could be going through the worst, but your expectation could be the best or where you want it to be. Do you understand? He was writing this in prison, and he says, for I fully expect and I hope that I will never be ashamed. The guy is in jail already. And he says, but I will continue to be bold for Christ as I have been in the past. And I trust, listen, every one of you, I trust that my life will bring honor. You're not meant to die a meaningless death. You're not meant to die, as someone who never lived. You understand? Each and every one of us, our life has significance and purpose. And he says here that I trust that my life will bring honor to Christ, whether I live or I die. The question is not, we will all die eventually, but what statement will you have made with your life? So don't obsess over when will I, no, that's not the focus on identifying who you are, changing your mind, correcting your expectations, expecting good things, expecting the best, okay? And allowing God to do what he does best. He says he will work you into his most excellent harmonies. Now, in conclusion, I'm sorry, guys. We're done now. Because, you see, the changes that occur or that will occur in our lives, it's not just a one-time thing. Like, what you desire next, when you get there, you will desire something else. And when you get there, you will desire something. Because life is such that it's supposed to push you forward. Do you understand? And that's the will and purpose of God for your life. You understand? That you would keep moving forward, that you would keep advancing. It's not God's design for us to stay stagnant or to stay stuck, or that when changes come, they disadvantage us. And that's why it's important that we know how to prepare ourselves. So finally, I think it's the last one, yeah? I'm going to just... It says here in... Deep breath, yeah? Yeah. We held up for too long. Yeah, we're done here. So it says finally, it says, see, I'm doing a new thing. See. The question is, can you see? Without an identity, you can't see. Without a changed mind, you cannot see. Without positive expectations, you cannot see. Even if I tell you, look, it's sunny outside. But if you're expecting it to be gloomy, that's what you'll see. So it says here, see, I'm doing a new thing. Now it springs up. You need to see it. You need to expect it. Do you understand? And he says, now it springs up. Do you not perceive it is the question. Are you able to perceive? And he says, I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. A way in the wilderness meaning where there was no hope, there will be hope. Where there was no rest, there will be rest. You know, where there was struggle. Do you understand what I'm saying here? That he's going to do a new thing as you expect, as you change your mindset, as you affirm your identity in being who God made you to be. You're that much prepared to embrace change, okay? Finally, oh my God, I feel so bad for saying that word now. And he says here in 84 and 87, look, it says, they go from strength to strength. That's the will of God for your life. That you keep getting stronger and stronger and better, okay? Increasing in victorious power. That your last victory or your next victory will be greater than your last victory. You understand? That you will defeat any addictions, you will defeat any challenges that you're experiencing because he's moving you from one strength to another strength. Okay? And he says here also concerning faith, he says, for in it the righteousness of God is revealed from faith to faith. Even in faith, we are growing from one level of faith to another level of faith. You understand? You are able to believe God for a job. Now you believe him for something else. You extend and you grow. Do you understand? And finally, it says, but we all with unveiled face, beholding as in a mirror the glory of the Lord, are being metamorphosed, transformed. The same word that we read in Romans 12:2. It says, we all as in a mirror are being transformed into the same image. The same image as who? As God. It's powerful. It's deep if you think about it. That in this journey, ultimately, you are supposed to be the embodiment of who Christ and who God is. Do you understand? So it says, and we are being transformed into the same image from glory to glory. One level of glory to another level of glory. Just as by the Spirit of the Lord. And so again in Isaiah 53:19, just as it read in the beginning, he says to you, forget about what's happened. The biggest impediment to us ending up on the right side of change is that we are too conscious of our mistakes and the things that happened to us. And he said, forget about what happened. Don't keep going over old history. Be alert, be present in the now, be in the moment. And he says, I'm about to do something brand new. There's some winds of change that are coming your way. But listen, as you affirm your identity, as you transform your mind, as you shift your expectations, you're going to be on the right side of that change. Okay?